This is the Enjoyer Podcast. I'm your host, James Dixon.
Last week we talked to Tom Barrett, Congressman-elect Tom Barrett, about the traps and the snares that await him in the Washington swamp. Well, Lansing's a swamp too. So the way it works is the 10 million people of Michigan send 150 people to represent them in Lansing. We elect our governor and the lieutenant to run the state, to run the executive branch agencies, to supervise the bulk of the employees, to set the frame for the state budget. We send 148 lawmakers, that's 110 House reps and 38 senators, to make the laws of the land. We send the 150 to Lansing with the best of intentions. We don't feel the need to watch their every move. Because we're the ones who sent them, we trust them implicitly. In the back of our minds, and maybe even in the front of our minds, we think that our state runs itself. Nothing could be further from the truth. Life doesn't run itself. Your household doesn't run itself. Your marriage doesn't run itself. You think a state of 10 million people does? It's not how it works. Lansing is a corrosive force. It weakens and worsens the character of the people we send there. And so you might realize and see that Washington is a swamp. Donald Trump has talked about that for almost a decade. You might not realize just how swampy Lansing is too. That the second we send our 150 and they arrive in Lansing, they're outnumbered 10-1 on that first day by lobbyists. These lobbyists present as new friends, people interested in helping you find your way around Lansing. And your friends come bearing gifts, including all expense-paid travel. Suddenly, before you know it, you're meeting beautiful women, 20 years your junior, who are fascinated by what you say, more so than any woman you've ever met. A lot of these people, your new friends, they helped you win the seat in the first place. And so your loyalty and your friendships and your sense of personal honor will be put into conflict with your personal values and the needs and wants of your district. The swamp exists so as to bend the knees that don't want to be bent. And this takes one of two forms: favors and force. Force is a last resort. It's been said that few people are ever actually pushed over the cliff in politics. Most just need to be shown the ledge. But most people never get to the cliff. It would never occur to them to cross the people who fund them and the people who befriend them. In their world, the lobbyist who's responsible for bundling $100,000 in donations has done way more for them than the voter who brought 10 friends to the polls. And so when they return to their district, there's always that hint of resentment. There's a sense that they'd rather be elsewhere, perhaps with their new friends. I think about former Michigan House Speaker Rick Johnson from Little Leroy, Michigan. Leroy with the capital R. It was around the turn of the century when Johnson was House Speaker and Kwame Kilpatrick led the Senate Democrats. One Republican, one Democrat, one black, one white, one from Michigan's biggest city, the other from one of its smallest towns. And both men in time would serve time in federal prison connected to their time in politics. That's what the Lansing swamp does to people, or perhaps that's the kind of person who's attracted to the Lansing swamp. Then there are the few. There's the mavericks who walk the narrow path. State Senator Jim Runestad of White Lake, he's been shown the ledge. He's been brought to the ledge. He survived it when 3 guys tried to surround him and push him over the ledge. Because there aren't many mavericks in Lansing, all the energies of the system can focus on the few who do exist. And those nails can be hammered down relatively easily. And so Runestad walks that narrow path, and he survived somehow to tell the tale. And so last week when Tom Barrett gave us a window into the D.C. swamp, you saw what he's up against. Well, Runestad is going to tell you about the Lansing version, and it can be just as vicious. Jim, welcome to the Enjoyer Podcast. Jim, we'll start you here. What do you enjoy about Michigan?
Well, I've been living in Michigan my entire life, and I believe it's one of the most beautiful states in the nation, by far the most beautiful in the entire Midwest. And it has a lot of grit. It has a lot of great history. It used to be the wealthiest state in the nation in the 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s. And so you still see a lot of the leftover architecture from that time period. I'm a huge history buff, architecture buff. So I love going into all of these
Right.
cities that you'll go into cities like Benton Harbor, which is impoverished, but at one time they had these mansions that were like, nationally known. So there's so many great things about Michigan that are absolutely fabulous, and so many ethnic communities that I have found so welcoming that I have represented that I love immersing myself into different kinds of cultures, and so it's a fabulous state. I have 5 kids, 14 grandkids. I'm not going anywhere. I've got to make this state work. So everything you outlined there is why I do what I'm doing. I had my own insurance agency and financial services and gave that up in 2014 to run for the legislature. So it was a financial sacrifice, but it was something that I felt was worth it, even though it's got heavy duty headwinds if you're not compliant. Most of what you see, and I think in probably any of these major political office, is there's everyone's looking for your compliance, and if you're not giving that, then as you described, there's two methods: the carrot and the stick. And if you don't respond to one, they use the other, and they'll usually start with, "What do you need for your district?" Well, they have these gigantic multi-billion-dollar appropriations, and it's taxpayer dollars. You want a no-bid contract for your friend, taxpayer dollars that only your friend gets for his business? Oh, yeah, that's up for negotiation. The corruption is to the core. It is disgusting. I had a conversation with a number of legislators and staff members at one of the national legislative conferences, and I was telling them these details. They said, "You mean you can take taxpayer dollars and you can give it as a no bid to one company?" I said, "Yeah, all the time, every single time, every budget." And they said, "In our state, that would be illegal. That's stealing from the public to give to a businessman in exchange for campaign cash." Oh, yeah, it happens all the time. And they're like, I don't know how many states permit this, but all of the states I talked to said that would be illegal. You can't do that. Maybe if you could demonstrate.
It is illegal. It actually is unconstitutional in Michigan. They just still do it.
What they do is they're very crafty. They say, "Well, we think you're very good to our industry. We appreciate you as the chair have a lot of wisdom." There's all these code words that continue doing what you're what we're asking you to do with no exchange of words. It's going to say it's quid pro quo, and then we're all good. But no, it certainly is a swamp, and it certainly does need to be cleaned up. I've put in so many transparency bills. Probably 24 by now. I have either sponsored, co-sponsored, or voted for every single transparency bill that's come up in the last 10 years. I have probably over a dozen sitting in Jeremy Moss's committee right now, all dead on arrival. The media calls Jeremy Moss the king of transparency. Why? Because when we were together when he was in minority, I was in majority, we were supporting the same bills, we're sponsoring the same bills. I was never called the king of transparency because he said, "Well, he's in the majority." They were calling him the king of transparency in the minority. I was in the majority. I was going against the governor and the structure in the majority, which that's very rare. I had a press conference where I the day after the speaker in the Senate said he doesn't want financial transparency, I had a scrum with the media saying I disagree with my majority leader. So Moss in the minority, he was marching with me hand and arm, and we're going towards transparency. And the day he gets elected in majority,
Right.
He said that week his number one priority is to get the Freedom of Information Act passed on the legislature and government. Number one majority. Here it is. We're in lame duck all this time. It's still not passed. And the one that they put up is weak as a sick old cat. There's so many loopholes in the thing. And yet I've been never changed. Minority, majority, putting in these bills. He's killed all the bills. The king of transparency, and then he's not gotten through his number one priority because he kept saying a few months. And they still, the media. I'm just reading the last couple of days. The king of transparency. This is how bad the media is. They're absolutely in on the game. The media is looking just like leadership is so often looking, compliance, especially if it's those that are compliant on the left. They are the heroes. If you're a Republican moving to the left, you are the hero. You're a statesman and a visionary. But if you are a conservative, you are the lowest rung on the ladder. And that's you outlined it well. That's what you fight.
Jim, the Michigan House was the only legislative body to flip in 2024. We talk so much about the presidential race and the Senate races and all that, but it was a huge thing. Democrats came in holding all the gavels, and now they don't hold them all anymore. So Whitmer's been basically turned into a lame duck for her last 2 years. Jim, what is your read on what has happened to the Michigan Democrats? I see them as basically a case of absolute power corrupts. Absolutely. And so they made all these laws last year. They made a lot of noise, but now they can't even share power and get along with each other. I see people who are low on ideas, cohesion, and social skills who can't even use their power to abuse it at the end of lame duck. They can't even get along to get a win. What's the inside view on what happened?
Well, it's interesting. I will say that the Democrats in general tend to stay more cohesive, in my view, than the Republicans. And the reason for that is their philosophy. Their philosophy is you aggregate all power to the top. So if it's an industry, they like regulating so that only the utilities are a monopoly, that in this industry and that industry, we give all the money, as you know, so they're giving all the money to just a few companies, the billionaire companies. The same thing goes in politics. They want all of our rights to aggregate to the top, to either to the state or to the federal level. They do not like small business. They do not like local government. They want everything completely controlled at the top. And so that's the way they ordinarily operate within themselves, is more of the leader at the top. The issues where anyone hears about this in their caucus, they are very, very tight-lipped. I mean, it's very until just recently, there has not been, to my knowledge, a single peep out of a single word of these Democrats, because they're into the power structure. Republicans, and it seems like in the caucus, stuff spills out. People are texting the media in the caucus room because they're just, the Republicans are way more independent as a group. So for them to come to this catastrophic failure at this point shows they have real internal divisions where this stuff is spilling out. I mean, I haven't heard stuff spilling out in 2 years, and now it's all gushing out in frustration. And apparently that goes to, and you see a lot of this, is when you have leadership that isn't shooting straight to the members. They'll string them along. Oh, your bill's coming up. Your bill's coming up. Remember, I'll leave the speaker out, but I had a bill to rewrite all of the web pages. We had worked for literally years looking at all 50 states and how is their state website done? What is the best practices, so that the person could go on, had uniform departments. They're all the same. You could get to supervisors, all this work that I had done. And it was 3 weeks out. They first off say, what are your last 3 bill priorities? And then oftentimes they use that against you. You're stringing you to get other votes, So it's 3 weeks out. I'm saying, I don't have 3. I just have 1. The one I've been working on for 2 years. It's 2 weeks out. I'm calling and texting the staff and the speaker. The last week, the speaker's not responding to me at all. And so now it's the last day. It's the last caucus, the last day, and my bill hasn't come up. And uh, everybody's saying their final goodbyes out of the final caucus. They're leaving, and I went up to the speaker and said, "Mr. Speaker, you have told me for 3 months you're going to run this bill. And for the last 3 weeks, we've been communicating, and you're saying you're going to put the bill up. You constantly kept saying just not today. This is the last day. So you have an option, and this option's up to you. You cannot put my bill up on the floor, and I'm going to make sure that there's not a person in this town that does not know that you are a liar and you do not honor your word. Or you can put the bill up, honor your word, and we're all good." And he knew I was telling the truth, and he said, "We'll put it up." And he did, and it passed, and it changed all the websites. But it's this kind of stuff that can happen on both sides. But right now, the Democrats, I think, have done such a horrible job with the bills that they're passing, which are so anti the state of Michigan, anti-business. The people have no idea what they have done to the business community here in the state of Michigan. They are crushing it. The bills they're passing right now are crushing the business in the state of Michigan. And it's going to take a decade at best to undo this. We already are one of the lower income states now. We are losing the second most number of people out of Michigan, a lot of it because there's no jobs, no decent paying jobs. And they are crushing the small businesses. They always love everything big, big. They're getting all their money. I don't know if you saw Tate, the speaker, got $100,000 from the utilities, from the monopolies. Right. $100,000 in one check. I mean, so they're always wanting that big, big money, big corporation, big government, big, big, big. But what happens is 80% at least of the jobs are with small businesses. So you're just crushing the job makers of the state of Michigan, crushing the jobs. People are going to be fleeing over the number of years because Whitmer's going to be in for 2 more years. She's going to veto every single bill, pro-business bill, and will at least stop with the Republicans. Will stop the bleeding. They won't pass any more garbage. Right. But my gosh, what they're doing to the state of Michigan, people have no idea. It's just a travesty.
Now, you want to take on a little bit of a different role. You're a state senator now, but in the minority, right?
Yep.
And you're interested in being our next Michigan GOP party chair. As I see it, going into 2026, the ultimate battle for Michigan, governor, attorney general, secretary of state, all those Congress seats, the Gary Peters seat, just everything is up for grabs. Everything that matters in Lansing and Washington. I see 3 needs. Candidate, recruitment. We need someone who's going to fill those 165 opportunities. We need money. Mallory McMorrow just had a video talking about, we're lapping the Republicans and all these operational things. They seem to think that dynamic will hold forever. And then get out the vote. We need a Scott Pressler of Michigan to make sure people are registered and then actually show up. In this new role, assuming you were to get that opportunity, how do you turn those weaknesses in Michigan right now into strengths with Donald Trump not on a ballot?
Well, I think the first thing as an entire party we have to do, and that is honor what we say we're going to do. And an example of that, the best example I can have is DeSantis in 2018. He made a bunch of promises in 18, and he squeaked through with less than 0.05 win. I mean, I think it was like 2,200 votes or something like that. And he said, these are the things I'm going to do. And then what did he do over the next 4 years? He did them all. He went and he was like a freight train. And they're saying, we're a purple state. You're going to lose, because it was a purple state. It was flipping back and forth. And I mean, there's just no way you're going to know, just like Michigan, who's going to win. But he did something very unique. He did what Trump did. He followed through on everything he said to the people. What happened this last election? He won by over 20 points and carried the whole state with him. It's not purple anymore. Everyone will tell you Florida went from purple to solid red. Michigan has been purple. I believe it can be solid red if we point out what the Democrats have done and follow through and adhere to our philosophy. I think most people naturally lean conservative. They don't want a lot of taxes and regulation. They don't want a lot of the social engineering in the schools that are so negative. I mean, you look at the polling of the boys playing on girls' sports, it's 80% of the people opposed. There's such a small group of people who support stuff like this, but we don't make it an issue. We don't go after these issues. What I have been specializing in all my career is communication. That's what I do very, very effectively. I've been in sales for most of my time before politics. And then in politics, I do probably more communication, certainly than any other senator. Probably on the Republican side, I put out more social media than anyone else. I had one speech that had 14 million views. No one has come close. No one even gets the weekly number. I post every 2 days on X. No one even comes close to those numbers. And it's all about communicating what's happening, communicating what the Democrats are doing to the state. We are doing a very deficient job right now on the media services. They'll send out press releases that come out. It's about maybe 20 to 30 per month for the Democrats. It's usually 1 or 2 for the Republicans. That would all end on as my tenure. I would be making sure whatever I'm getting in Lansing is getting gushed out of the state of Michigan. And I was asked, would you resign the Senate post? I thought about it. I talked with a number of people. They want my vote there in Lansing, but it's only consists of about 10 hours a week after the first of the year when everything's gridlocked. Every bill is going to be agreed to. What I was doing was attacking the Democrats' bills. I won't be able to do that as much because they're now going to all be negotiated over the next 2 years. It's my last 2 years, but I would love to take everything I'm learning and just spending the normal 90, 100 hours a week I spend in politics and pushing the message out. I mean, they would never have seen a tsunami of attacks, legitimate, accurate attacks against them as I would bring to bear.
You know, it's funny. I think about the medium and the message of lame duck, right? So last year, 321 laws, quite a lot. It showed, oh my God, these they're busy. The Democrats are using these gavels that they have, and then going into the election and going into lame duck, they passed half as many laws. And it wasn't just an election year that stopped them. They passed plenty in 2022 when everyone was up. And so I see them getting a lot less effective. And then you see this tsunami, as you described at the very end. It seems to me that waiting until the end means that the Democrats know what they're trying to do is not well liked and not very popular, and they're trying to operate in the dark of night and use time crunches and that kind of thing. What have the Democrats done that could come back to haunt them in 2026 in lame duck?
There's so many. There's too many to mention. Like I said, a lot of their social engineering stuff. One example I can think of is saying that the school board, a library board, cannot control the content. It's up to the director. The director serves at the behest of the board, and then the director is to use the leftist national model. So as long as they're using the leftist national model, which is child porn, I don't know if you've ever seen the book Genderqueer is just one example. It's a book about a 9-year-old boy having oral and anal sex with about a 30-year-old boy, with very graphic illustrations of all this and very graphic text throughout the whole thing. And this is what they have for elementary school kids. I'm not kidding. When the average person sees this, the average parent would punch a person in the face that tried to show that to their kids. The average Democrat would. Now there's Democrats who could flip. If the party tells them that's now approved and good, it's inclusive and it's whatever, the same parent that would smash your face in for showing it to the kid now says that we need to celebrate this. But they are a small group of parents. We're going to make sure that the parents are going to get aware. There's like 12 of these books that the Democrat, education organization, the national one, so if we can get the word out, and they're passing this kind of garbage right now. The stuff that they're passing is so despicable and disgusting that the average person is going to be absolutely appalled. Giving illegal immigrants licenses for in my view, the sole purpose to get them to vote. I have talked to clerks all over the state of Michigan and say the way the laws are currently written, if we issue them a driver's license, game over. All the illegals can now vote. There's about 110,000 illegals in here. They'll be recruiting all 110,000 to vote. And they're going to vote for the Democrat Party. So it goes on and on. It's the worst lame duck I have ever seen. Like Karen Winslet had said, bill after bill that no one has read. It's not been through committee. They're throwing it up on the board. Amendments that no one's seen, throwing them that modify bills that you thought you knew what it is. It's just a potential catastrophe for the people of the state of Michigan. If they knew how you're supposed to run an operation and how they run the operation, they would be appalled. When I was a chair of a committee, when any controversial bill at all, I wanted first and foremost that we have the opponents of the bill in the stakeholder meeting. I have never been, and I've been on judiciary for 10 years. Over the last 2 years, I've never been involved with any discussion on any bill. It comes popping through at the last minute. The room is full of all the supporters of the bill. Our opponents get notified the night before the bill. So we're trying to get people in to address these things. We're trying to read and digest this. Now, they've been working on this stuff for months. So we're pointing out problems with the bills, putting in amendments. Amendments all get shot down. They just rocket everything through. The exact opposite of what I did. When I was there, I got more bipartisan, unanimous votes out of the committee I chaired than had ever been done in the Judiciary Committee. Now there's no stakeholder meeting on the opponents. Everything is get the echo chamber, putting a bill together, and that's what they smash through, get it up on the floor, and they smash it through. All amendments are shot down. Nobody knows what's in these bills. And the unintended consequences will be devastating for the people. The people have just got to understand what is actually happening here in the state of Michigan. They don't.
Well, and that's the thing. Like there's obviously terrible stuff in these bills because bad people are behind them and bad people are passing them. It just seems like that's a marketplace opportunity. The gap between how lawmaking is done ideally and what they're doing right now, the number of things they're taking up, how many things are going all the way in a single day. What's done in the dark will come out in the light. It seems like that's the big opportunity, is if you could demystify Lansing, it seems like you could de-swampify it too. Lansing needs to become a community in Michigan just like the rest of Michigan. It should not be a special place where these kind of things happen. That would not happen in most cases in a township or a county board. Lansing has become this alien environment. And Jim, we'll get you out of here on this one. Can it be changed?
Oh, I believe it can. What you just described is a huge part of the problem. I used to go to the township board meetings. I rally people, the county commission meetings. I had huge victories where I changed what the local unit of government was going to do because I rallied people there. It's way more difficult to do that at the state level. So what I have been here in the more local area is the voice of the people. In my district, I put out communications to them that I write every letter. This is a letter that gets inserted in an envelope and it goes out. That's about all I ever send out anymore. What most people do is they send these communications from the communications department. It's this bland. It's to appeal to everybody. Everyone throws it away. It's trash. I used to get those, and you read the first or second one, you realize, hey, this stuff is it's nothing. It's pablum. What I do is I write and I inform the people in my district. Here is what's happening in Lansing. Here is what's the bills that are coming up. I put that out in social media to a large extent. I would take that statewide. We would be communicating more with the people of the state of Michigan and the Republican side than has ever been done before. They wouldn't have to come to Lansing to find out what's happening. I would take Lansing out to every single one of the homes and informing them of what is going on. I also really believe you touched on the fundraising. I was one of the top fundraisers every cycle in Lansing. Not with Lansing, though. I raised it out in the district. That means you sit down with somebody, no quid pro quo, no big contracts, none of that stuff.
Right.
That's why they donated. I believe I could do that the same at a much larger scale as the chair of the party. So I'm looking forward to engaging with that. Another thing that Donald Trump showed the way, but I've been working on it for 6 years, and that's the ethnic outreach. There is no legislator on the Republican side in Michigan's history that has done more ethnic outreach than I have. That's all on my website, jimforchair.com. I don't have time to outline all of that for you today, but certainly they can read all about that, my policy positions. So I'm excited about getting in the saddle and changing everything. If somebody tells me, but Jim, that's the way we always did it, that's a red flag for me. That means we need to take a close look at that, because so much of what I've experienced in the last 40 years at State Party has not been working. It's usually the yes men around the chair all saying the chair is great and all the ideas come from the yes men, and the gatekeepers stop anyone from communicating. All that would be reversed if I was chair. We would be getting information from the grassroots. I'd be going out speaking and getting their input, because very often the people who are connecting with the people every day know a whole lot more than a consultant up in Lansing who's just simply making money off of their recommendations.
You know, I find it fascinating. And so you get to a Lansing and you face force and favors and all these people trying to move you to a point B that works for them and not necessarily for you. But to get to Lansing, it takes two tools: attacks. You have to attack the enemy. There is no good guy route to getting power. You have to say what they're doing wrong, because to me, that's how Republicans lost Michigan in the first place in 2022. I think Republicans didn't clash enough with Gretchen Whitmer, and it created this impression in a voter's mind that how much worse would we actually be if we just had Democrats?
You are so right. And this will be my final word. I realize I got to jump in the car, but yeah, you're absolutely correct. And that is what I specialize in. There's not a single legislator, not one on the Republican side, that is going to claim to do more of the attacks than I do. I'm going to be in Lansing this week, blazing away at all the garbage. I attack them more. I do more floor speeches than anybody else. And the Democrats hate me. They can't stand me. It's funny. The Republican caucus said, you notice when Runestad gives a speech, they never leave. They don't. They stew in their chair, but they don't leave. They want to know what I'm saying, because they know it's going to be not bland, boring. It's not going to be the pale pastels, like Reagan said. It's the bright colors. That's the way I speak to them, the bright colors.
Yeah.
And with that, I so appreciate being on the show, and I always love your writing. It's some of the best, I think, of the state of Michigan. So I really appreciate it.
Absolutely, Jim. Be blessed, safe in your travels, and have a Merry Christmas.